Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Parliament. I'd like to acknowledge Christopher Pyne, the Minister, for the words he just gave. I'd also like to acknowledge all the parliamentary colleagues who are here and appreciate very much your giving up of your time to be part of Science Meets Parliament. And in the spirit of acknowledging people, I'd like to congratulate the remarkable Ian Chubb for his service that he's given our nation as Chief Scientist. That applause, I think, Ian, reflects what we all know to be true, that your record of achievement speaks for itself. So often you step forward to speak for science, and we're the richer for your efforts. I also wish to warmly congratulate Alan Finkel on your appointment and the start that you've made in the role. Now, I also think it's important to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and I pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. 40,000 years ago, the campfires of the Ngambri and the Ngunnawal people dotted the hills that surround us. And billions of years before that, so far removed by time and space as to be almost incomprehensible to us, two black holes merged to create a single enormous entity. In the final fraction of a second of that cataclysmic event, a ripple in the fabric of space-time known as a gravitational wave was created. Now, there's always a danger speaking later. And in September last year, scientists from Caltech and MIT in observatories in Louisiana and Washington observed these waves for the first time, confirming a major strand of Einstein's theory of relativity 100 years after he made the prediction. And we can all be proud that the researchers and scientists from ANU, the University of Melbourne, the University of Western Australia, Monash University and Charles Sturt University contributed to this discovery. And the CSIRO helped design, coat and polish the ultra-high performance optical mirrors, which contributed to a 10-fold increase in the system's sensitivity. Now, in a room full of passionate scientists, you can tell that story without someone asking the question that every researcher probably secretly dreads. You know that question. That's fascinating. Very nice. But what does it do? Now, I'm sure you've all heard that before in one form or another. Labor's Shadow Minister, Senator Kim Carr, is fond of the anecdote where the famous 19th century experimental scientist and the inventor of the electric dynamo, Michael Faraday, showed his invention to Prime Minister Disraeli, who said, of course, "What use is it?" But Faraday had come prepared. Perhaps he had done the 19th century version of Science Meets Parliament. Faraday said, "It's as much use as a newborn baby. But one day the baby will grow up, and then, sir, you may tax it." Before and after Disraeli, politicians have asked scientists, what use is it? What does it do? How can we turn this into a business? When will we be able to tax it? Those questions, I believe, spring from a lack of curiosity, a failure of curiosity, an absence of fascination which drives scientific discovery. Without a sense of wonder, the words science and innovation are sometimes used interchangeably. But innovation needs a strong science and research foundation. The skills, the knowledge, the sense of curiosity and exploration that scientists bring to their work. It is true, backing startups and innovators and encouraging invention is essential. But we must also support the fundamental research which underpins the whole innovation system. I recognise that no commercialisation takes place without new knowledge. And we can never forget the importance of a sense of wonder to the scientific mission. This is why in my budget reply speech last year, I set a shared national goal for Australia's future. Businesses, universities, government, working together to boost Australia's investment in research and development from 2.1% of GDP to 3% of GDP by 2030. This is ambitious, but we must be ambitious. We should not lower our sights or slow our stride in the science race, the discovery race, the pursuit of jobs and prosperity of our future. Our economic competitors certainly won't. Sweden, Korea, Japan, Denmark, Israel, Finland, some of the leading technology nations of the world already devote more than 3% of their GDP to research. Getting Australia up to this level will require cooperative partnerships between business, industry, universities and research institutes. And government has a role to play, creating the right conditions for investment, sending the right signals and addressing the gaps in the market, supporting innovation through the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, which has helped the researchers at the University of New South Wales set world records for solar cell efficiency, generating investment through the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, creating jobs in what Al Gore calls the biggest business opportunity in the history of business, renewable energy. And there are other times when government must provide a kickstart. That is why, if elected, Labor will create a $500 million smart investment fund to invest in early stage and high potential companies and support better microfinancing for new businesses. We will help young people with good ideas undertake a start-up year at university collaborating with successful entrepreneurs. And we will take innovation beyond our capital cities with regional innovation hubs in country towns right around Australia. But science does not begin and end with a return on investment. Science does not exist to fulfill investment banking deals. Put another way, I believe that science never ends. Answering one question inevitably raises another. Science is not just a skill set, it is a mindset, a calling, a pursuit, a way of looking at the world. Developing and nurturing this depends above all upon education. Australia cannot hope to be an innovation nation unless it is an education nation. Without fair, needs-based funding for every school, without support for our TAFEs, without accessible, affordable university education, we need teachers who have the knowledge and confidence and the passion to engage in discussions, to test assumptions, to challenge their students to think for themselves, to encourage children to fall in love with science, to feel that confidence which so many in this room have felt as you've developed your love of science. I believe that rote learning, the periodic table from an overworked and underqualified teacher, does not foster a love of chemistry any more than memorising a soliloquy inspires a love of literature. This is why a Labor government, if elected, will deliver better skills and training for 25,000 current science, technology, engineering and maths teachers, and an additional 25,000 scholarships for future teachers. It is why we are committed to properly funding our universities, putting downward pressure on fees. Because a smart and scientific nation does not price working and middle-class families out of higher education. I obviously don't know the backstory of each of the young scientists who comes to be here, the journey you've taken to be a young scientist. But what I'm reasonably sure of is that many of you come from working class and middle class backgrounds, and given the chances, you've exploited them. And I want the same for our future scientists. And if we are going to be a scientific nation, we cannot exclude, as Andrew Stevens said in his earlier address, whilst not using these precise words to be fair, we cannot exclude half of our population from science. Today, over half of our PhD graduates and early career researchers are women. Yet when it comes to senior academics in our universities and research institutes, the ratio of women to men drops to 17%. That's fewer than 1 in 5. That disparity, that inequality, in my opinion, represents a terrible waste of talent and expertise, and fewer role models for the next generation of women and girls. Can I suggest tonight that if Australia did nothing else but encourage more of our brilliant women scientists to become lecturers and researchers and senior leaders, then we would be a better, smarter, more productive and more prosperous country. Equality for women is not just social justice or political correctness. It's a productivity plan. It's a growth strategy. The equal treatment of women in science will guarantee better outcomes than we currently get. It is how we win the science and research race in this 21st century. Now, there are good programs like Science in Australia, Gender Equity, doing important work here. But the history of affirmative action tells us that aspiration alone will not drive the cultural change that we need. We need to think about real, tangible targets with meaningful consequences if we fail to meet them. That's why at least half of the 100,000 debt-free STEM degrees that Labor will deliver in government over 5 years will go to female students. Friends, this is my third dinner here as opposition leader, hopefully my last. 2 years ago at this dinner, I asked you to join me in making science a national political issue, an economic priority for Australia. Because of you, because of your advocacy and energy and goodwill, there is a greater recognition of science and research in business, in the media and academia, even in this Parliament. We certainly have seen a change in the language of late. And I want to put on record my acknowledgement that there's been an overdue end of the openly anti-scientific ideology of the recent past, and it is welcome. But generous praise is poor compensation for harsh cuts and an uncertain future. Gestures and advertising campaigns count for little when jobs are being lost, grants are being cancelled. Without a strong research base, the ideas boom will go bust pretty soon. Now, as scientists, you know better than anyone that until you can prove a statement with empirical evidence, it remains a hypothesis. The real test for when science meets Parliament in March 2017 will be if the Australian government's commitment to science runs deeper than rhetoric. If Australian scientists are finally being offered the consistency and continuity of support, the consistency and continuity of opportunities, respect and reward that you've earned. If we are on the road to 3% of GDP for research, if we pass these tests, Australia won't just be an honest toiler in the race for the jobs of the future. We'll be leading the way. We'll be driving discovery. We will be bringing our expats home to inspire the next generation. We will be fulfilling our potential as the great science and research and education nation that you know we can be. This is the smarter, more scientific future that I and Labor believe in. Let's deliver it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Leader of the Opposition. Wow, well, I said it felt like it was going to be a bit of a debate, but I had no idea it was going to be that much of a debate. And I must admit I did miss the 6 o'clock news, but was an election announced? Because someone was campaigning here tonight. It was very heartening for many of us in the room to hear gravitational waves mentioned. We can always have a little lift in our hearts when we hear some science spoken to us. So that was absolutely wonderful. I think it would have won a lot of votes, except for the people from the University of Adelaide who were also involved in that research and might be sitting over there this evening. But it's easy to miss out a single university with a list like that. But look, I'm not going to award scores tonight. I'm sure there's a private little worm going up and down in every voter's mind right now. But please join me in thanking both our speakers, the Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, for bringing us to a close this evening with some terrific, engaging and optimistic speeches from both sides. Funny not to be announcing a winner. I would also, that does bring to an end of the evening the formal parts, but we have got the room booked for a little while yet, so we're here until 10, so make sure you make the most of your time getting to know people, speaking up, having a good time, not too much of a good time, because tomorrow's a big day where you're speed dating ministers and other members of Parliament, and you don't want to blow that. Plus tomorrow you've got some terrific speakers, starting with Ian Chubb in the morning, and Alan Finkel at the National Press Club giving his maiden speech as Chief Scientist tomorrow. If you're lucky, Alan might show you a couple of slides from his recent trip to see the Northern Lights. If you're unlucky, he might show you all 480 of them. Either way, enjoy your day tomorrow. I know, just got to go the cheap gag at the end. And please go forth and make science, policy, business friends. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.